Monday to Sunday.
It's hard to explain, okay? But
All day. All year round.
it's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are. WADR.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning into West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and all around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Independent Commission for Peace in Sierra Leone urges calm as the nation awaits the June 24th election results.
The ICPNC has observed several emerging post-voting tensions and increase in violent incidents across various districts in the country. Therefore, we call upon the security forces to enhance vigilance as we approach the conclusion of this aspect of the election process.
The African Union Chair, President Assoumani of Comoros, concludes his 2 days visit to Conakry. Ghana's Ministry of Health took over mental health treatment under the National Health Insurance Scheme.
So we think that instead of all the agencies working individually or what we call in silos, if we come together and collaborate, then we would have a better effect in providing mental health care for the people of Ghana.
And the Gambian Interior Minister reveals huge seizure of illegal drugs between 2021 and April 2023. Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Let's begin the bulletin with updates in Sierra Leone, where the Office of the National Security (ONS) has commended security personnel deployed during the June 24th elections for their professional conduct. The ONS also warned elements against acts that may jeopardize public safety, especially when the results would be announced. The coordinator, Abdullahi Koka, was speaking at the press conference by the Electoral Commission on Sunday at the 2023 election situation hub in Freetown. WADR's Patrick Salia was there and now reports.
Colcas praised the performance of the security personnel throughout the electioneering process, particularly the polling day, comes against the backdrop of a security sector report which has over the years criticized the police for their high-handedness on the civilian population.
I am so elated by the professional performance of the security sector in ensuring maximum security throughout the voting, in spite of the isolated incidences in some parts of the country. We have, as a country, honorably discharged when the whole world is looking at us to see what Sierra Leone will look like during this period of elections.
But barely 48 hours after the June 24 vote, both the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party, SLPP, and the main opposition All People's Congress, APC, are claiming landslide victory. Abdullahi Kolka therefore said they shall not compromise the disturbance of peace and security after the official announcement of the certified final result by the Electoral Commission.
I would love to encourage everybody, when the results are read, if you think you are aggrieved, go to the courts. But when you choose the pattern of going to the streets as a sector, we will not sit by and allow anybody to disturb the peace of this country.
Meanwhile, despite the attacks and vandalism of electoral materials, mostly in the opposition stronghold in the north, Chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mohamed Kone, revealed that they were able to pacify voters to exercise their franchise peacefully.
People are saying, if not the best, but it's one of the best election day is really over the period. And that is in line with the promise we made to this country when I assumed office, that I want to supervise an election where our children will be going to school and ordinary people will be going about their normal businesses.
Ahead of the official results declaration by ECSL, the Political Parties Regulations Commission says it looks forward to the political parties upholding the peace accord signed before the elections. Patrick Salia, WADR News, Freetown.
Meanwhile, barely 24 hours after the general elections in Sierra Leone on Saturday, the country's Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, ICPNC, has reported receiving calls, messages, and videos through its toll-free line and WhatsApp platform. The messages were mainly of threat, violence, allegations of ballot stuffing, and intimidation of polling staff, among others. Such factors, the Commission's chairman, Reverend Shodanke Johnson, said contributed to increased political tension in some polling stations, particularly in the capital city, Freetown.
We know that there were numerous instances of disinformation, particularly on social media, which had the potential to fuel unnecessary tension in and around the polling areas. Therefore, we urge the general public to cultivate the habit of verifying or fact-checking content before sharing information on social media to minimize the spread of disinformation, particularly during and after the elections. We urge everyone to remain peaceful and law-abiding and allow the ECSL personnel to carry out their duties without any impediment as we await the official announcement of results. The ICPNC has observed several emerging post-voting tensions and increase in violent incidents across various districts in the country. Therefore, we call upon the security forces to enhance vigilance and security in all parts of the country as we approach the conclusion of this aspect of the election process.
That was Reverend Shodanke Johnson, chairman of the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
It's 6 minutes past 12 in our studios. This is West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, and we are streaming all around the world on WADR.org. Here in Senegal, President Macky Sall has received the final report from the National Dialogue, which he officially initiated on May 31st, 2023. The report was presented during a ceremony held at the State House and attended by key participants involved in the dialogue. One notable outcome highlighted in the report is the reduction to a range between 0.6% and 0.8% of required signatures for presidential candidacy sponsorship, which was previously set at 1% of registered voters. As a reminder, opposition political parties, including PASTEF, led by opponent Ousmane Sonko, as well as civil society organizations, boycotted the dialogue. While President Sall assures to address the nation after the Muslim feast Tabaski, there are already debates and projections about the outcome. A Senegalese political analyst, Mamadou Cho, remarks on the issue.
When we talk about the electoral code, they say that, some change may be brought to what we call the L29 and the L30, which have some problematic parts and which prevent a candidate like Khalifa Sall to run for 2024. But at the same time, according to what we heard from those who participated in, opposition leader like Ousmane Sonko is still excluded because the change will be focusing on people who had been already in jail. So that's not the case for the time before Ousmane Sonko, which means a way of excluding him for 2024.
One other thing that is very much in doubt, according to a few people who have reacted also, is that the relative peace that has returned to Senegal at the moment is threatened. Should Macky Sall's national address not favor the majority? Is that true?
Yeah, everything is fragile because it's depending on what he will say. Because as you know, there is a light coalition of civil society, political parties, and other organizations called F24. And all these people are waiting for him to make clear that he will run again. Everything can happen. Nobody knows. Maybe there will be violent protests because, people are prepared to face in case he does not keep to his promise of not running again.
And one other thing still that remains is the issue of Ousmane Sonko's alleged home arrest.
Yeah, I think, and even on this Sunday, the leaders of the Yegas they decided to go there and free him, and they didn't succeed because there were a lot of police and gendarmerie forces.
That was Mamadou Cho, a Senegalese political analyst. Meanwhile, the current chairman of the African Union over the weekend concluded a state and friendship visit to Guinea. For 2 days, President Azali Assoumani and Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya discussed the conduct of the elections in Guinea and the African Union's contribution to the mobilization of funds to finance the items on the transition timetable. They also discussed opportunities for cooperation between Guinea and the Comoros. More details with Marty C.
This is the first visit by an African Union chairman in office to Guinea since the coup d'etat of September 5, 2021. Azali Assoumani and Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya spent yesterday discussing 3 issues: the conduct of the transition, the role of the African Union should play in accompanying said transition, and finally, the possibility of cooperation between Guinea and the Comoros archipelago. With regard to the Guinean transition, Azali Assoumani listened to the presentations by the Minister of Territorial Administration and the Minister of Foreign Affairs on the actions already taken and those underway in relation to the transition timetable. According to the final press release, the current chairman of the African Union hailed the efforts made by the Guinean authorities for a peaceful and inclusive transition. He remains hopeful that Guinea will be able to overcome the current challenges and make progress towards a return to constitutional order. The 2 leaders also discussed Guinea's stability, African solidarity, and resolving the challenges facing the continent, security in the Sahel, and climate change. The Comoros archipelago and Guinea seized the opportunity to also express their desire to establish a new roadmap for cooperation. Azali Assoumani and Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya instructed their respective foreign ministers to explore means of establishing a legal framework for cooperation, leading to the signing of an agreement establishing the grant permission of cooperation between 2 countries.
Marty C. filed that report. In other news, Ghana's Ministry of Health is collaborating with the Mental Health Authority to cover mental health conditions under the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. The National Health Insurance Authority has, to this end, requested data from the Mental Health Authority to enable it to conduct and determine the possibility of adding mental health treatment to the NHIS benefit package. This forms part of the government's efforts to meet the Universal Health Coverage UAC target set by the World Health Organization, WHO. WADR Satiawin Bila Lawson in Accra has the story.
Mental, neurological, and substance use disorders account for more than 10% of the global disease burden. In low and middle income countries, more than 75% of people with mental disorders receive no treatment at all for their disorder. In Ghana, only about 2% of the 2.3 million people living with mental health conditions receive psychiatric treatment and support from health facilities, according to the World Health Organization. Speaking at a forum with stakeholders on a roadmap, the Deputy Minister for Health, Mahama Asei Sieni, says covering mental health conditions under the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, represents a commitment by the government to expand inclusive healthcare towards universal health coverage.
The National Health Insurance is going to take care of mental health patients and other activities so that at least the funding expanding, and with government support and donor support, stakeholder support, this issue of financial constraints will be eased.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority, Professor Pinamam Apau, on her part, indicated that she's committed to a multi-sectoral approach to addressing mental health challenges in the country.
So we're looking at Ghana Health Services, we're looking at CHAG, we're looking at even the universities and all other agencies that can help us achieve our goal. So we think that instead of all the agencies working individually, or what we call in silos, if we come together and collaborate, then we would have a better effect in providing mental health care for the people of Ghana.
Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Independent Commission for Peace and Sierra Leone urges calm as the nation awaits the June 24th election results. The African Union Chair, President Assoumani of Comoros, concludes his 2 days visit to Conakry. Ghana's Ministry of Health to cover mental health treatment under the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. And the Gambian Interior Minister reviews huge seizure of illegal drugs between 2021 and April 2023. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
If you are just tuning in, this is West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Don't forget you can follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service, and on YouTube, find us at WADR News. The Gambia's Interior Minister, Siaka Sonko, has revealed that the Gambia has seized about 4 tons of cocaine and 6 tons of cannabis between 2021 and April 2023. The minister also indicated that more than 18,000 controlled drugs were seized, while over 16,000 drug cases involved 16,665 persons were registered in the same period. The Interior Minister made the comment in a statement commemorating International Day Against Drug Abuse and illicit trafficking, which is observed every 26 June. Here is an excerpt from Gambia's Interior Minister, Siaka Sonko.
At the national level, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Gambia, DLEAG, it registered 1,629 cases involving 1,665 accused persons from January 2021 to April 2023. The agency also seized almost 6 tons of cannabis, close to 4 tons of cocaine, and more than 18,000 assortments of controlled drugs, ranging from ecstasy, diazepam, clonazepam, methamphetamine, bronazepam, among others. At the same time, the league equally sees significant quantities of hashish, skunk, and kush for the said period. We renew our commitment to resolve to end this endemic. We must also collectively work towards combating misinformation, increasing public awareness, and strengthening efforts aimed at dismantling criminal syndicates. We are equally determined to ensure that we dismantle any organized crime or criminal network that may emerge in our jurisdiction. We will deal with any such group without negotiation to safeguard our youth from misery and the sufferings caused by drugs.
That was the Interior Minister of the Gambia, Siaka Sonko, speaking there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Abuja with WADR's Usman Umar.
So today we'll be looking strictly at 2 major national dailies, the Guardian newspaper and the Daily Trust newspaper. And incidentally, just like other major newspapers in the country, both are looking at the financial sector today. So for the Guardian, we have a banner headline: 40% hike in vehicle duties worsens transport crisis, poverty. With riders, leased vehicle duty now 1.1 million naira. Another rider: Nigerians to suffer severe effect, stakeholders warn. Nigeria should begin to look inwards for vehicle assemblage, says Mahmudu, is an expert in the transport sector of Nigeria. The last rider says many trapped vehicles at the port would be abandoned. Now, the Nigeria Customs Service official exchange rate on duties and levies on imported vehicles and other commodities was adjusted last Friday from 422.3 naira to $1 to 589.45 naira to $1, translating to about 40% upward review. Now, the new charges have taken effect across the board, with importers of goods awaiting clearing being compelled to cough out additional money to get their cargoes out. Let's quickly switch over to the Daily Trust, which is also, like I pointed out earlier, looking at another aspect of the financial sector. It has a banner headline saying, Nigerian banks heading for recapitalization, with riders, capital base eroded by $4.5 billion since 2005. This is according to the Apex Bank source. The second rider says experts kick against regulatory induced change. Now, the recent devaluation of the naira against the United States dollars has sparked conversation on the urgency around the need to raise the capital base of commercial banks in the country. This is according to a Daily Trust report. Analysis by experts, including this newspaper, that is the Daily Trust, which has done extensive coverage on this, shows that 25 billion naira in 2004 exchange rate which was about 100 naira, saw the bank's capital base in dollar terms average $250 million. But today, if we relate 25 billion naira at 750 naira, it is substantially lower to just about $33.3 million. However this pans out, of course, the Nigerian economy is headed for serious reforms. We can only hope that the average citizen does not suffer the consequences of the negative side of these reforms. And this is the much we have for you today on the press review segment from Nigeria. Do have a lovely day. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Usman Umar, for that newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, ICPNC, in Sierra Leone has reported receiving calls, messages, and videos through its toll-free line and WhatsApp platform. This comes barely 24 hours after the general elections in the country on Saturday. Citing issues such as intimidation of polling staff, issues of threat and violence, including allegations of ballot staffing, among others, many electoral observers and citizens have raised concerns on how this can destabilize and create political unrest in a country that has a record of decade-long civil war which began in 1991 as a revolt against a long-standing dictatorship. Our guest, Austin Igbe, an electoral observer, will share his post-election analysis of the situation on the ground regarding the electoral cycle, on how concerning parties and stakeholders can consolidate their gains in the democratic decision on their leadership for the next term of office. Another issue of concern is how credible, transparent, and fair the outcome of the results can be to create room for satisfactory acceptance by especially opposition parties after the declaration of official results by the ECSL.
Okay, so right now the election took place on Saturday. There's been a lot of pressure on what is going to look like a violent outcome. As we speak, the streets are a bit lonely and obviously looking dry. Vehicular movement has dropped. Even vehicular movement compared to yesterday was higher than today. Apparently, people are just a bit skeptical about what the outcome of declaration results will look like. As we speak, the collation is ongoing at the regional level. According to the Electoral Committee chair, they've received about 90% of the results already at the regional level. So once those results are collated, it will immediately move on to the National Collation Center in Freetown. However, because of the declaration, somehow, not like truly declaration, because the APC candidate has come out yesterday to apparently declare what seems like a declaration that he is already leading and asking the relevant authority, including the military, to ensure smooth transition. That is almost a challenge right now. And you may have heard that the APC office was attacked with tear gas canisters and all of that yesterday. There were even speculation that life rounds were shot, but we can't independently verify those. But we can independently verify that tear gas was used in that kind of, I won't say attack, because the police said they had to stop that so-called declaration because it is illegal. They want the parties not to engage in any form of declaration, that it is the Electoral Commission that has the mandate to declare results.
So the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion has also raised a number of concerns, including allegations of ballot staffing, intimidation of polling staffs, among others. Does this reflect the actual situation on the ground for you?
So there are a lot that has happened on Saturday, or a lot happened on Saturday, but I will argue, following what happened in 2018, for observers of 2018, you will literally argue that the 2023 election is truly an upgraded format. It was largely peaceful. Yes, there were areas where there were certain attacks that thugs invaded polling units and, polling stations, and scatter literally all the things, made away with the ballot boxes and all that. But I didn't observe any ballot stuffing. I won't say that, but yes, in all the area I went through, only in Freetown, the major challenge was the early hour of the day on Saturday with the late deployment of electoral materials. In certain area where you have even deployment of material, eventually you will see that the ballot box is missing the cover, which means, the electoral process are supposed to
have the cover properly tightened in a way that once the vote goes in, no other person has access to that ballot. So, but those were resolved at some point, and the commission came out to announce that polling stations where material were deployed late, they could have extended voting time. On Saturday, some polling units literally ended yesterday, till like midnight on Sunday. Early hours of Sunday. In certain area, 11:30, some area 9:30, which was just similar with what we saw in the Nigeria election. But yes, if there are stuffing of ballots, I don't know the process, the procedure where you have to cancel votes where there are increased number of votes compared to those that were accredited. But normally the standard is that those polling need to be cancelled.
So finally, the electoral cycle involves how political parties, the EC and all stakeholders can accept its outcome. Do you think that there will be a willingness to welcome the official results after declaration?
That is something that is already causing the tension in the town, in the city, and across the country. The truth of the matter is that because the opposition leader has gone ahead publicly to say he's waiting for smooth transition, it informed a separate narrative. Because from experience across West Africa and Africa elections, oppositions will usually run to the media to create an impression that they are winning elections. And when the official result is out, when they lose, it therefore becomes a challenge. But for me, I don't look at the outcome of results. I look at the processes that will lead to the outcome.
Austin Naigbe is an election observer in Sierra Leone. And here's Sankule Janko with some sports updates.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Mali came from behind to beat Gabon 3-1 in the CAF Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations Group B encounter in Tangiers on Sunday. Goals from Mamadou Sangare, Shiaka Doumbia and Alassane Tamboura were enough to earn them the victory. Mali will take on Egypt in their next match with hope to secure a place in the next round. In the Gambia, Real de Banjul have been crowned champions of the Gambia Football Federation League 1 for the 2022-23 season, following a goalless draw against Wa Banjul over the weekend. The title race in the Gambian top tier went to the wire, as it was only decided on goal difference. Both Real and their nearest challengers, Falcons, finished the league with same points, 52, but Real had a superior goal difference of 5. Falcons beat Steve Biko 4-2, but failed to secure the 5 goals needed to stand any chance of clinching their maiden league title. The most successful football club in the Gambia, Real de Banjul, is expected to represent the Gambia in the CAF Champions League preliminaries for next season. Meanwhile, last season champions Hawks Football Club were relegated following a 2-1 defeat by Greater Tomorrow. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankule, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a rebroadcast of our health program, Well Body with Ibo Edit. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.